I'll scan the space frequency modulator with my remote control array to find Batman.
Surf's up!
Hello, I'm the Angry Spork, taking issue with Detective Comics' City of Crime arc. Last week, the mysterious organization known as the Body attacked the ventriloquist and tried to bomb Batman with one of its minions posing as a corpse. As you do. Bats managed to fight off more opponents and narrowly save a family from another imposter, then was aided by the Penguin, providing backup against an army of dirt people and offering a hint where to find the base for this cadre. Crown Point. Issue 807's cover has shadows of people surrounding Batman, looking unconscious on the ground with a broken bottle of alcohol nearby. After one drunken karaoke night too many, everyone decided Batman needed an intervention. We begin with Bruce in disguise, walking down a populated street, and I hope that image of his masked persona is just for effect and not visible to those people, or his cover's already blown. Narration mentions Cassie Welles may well be found here, in a neighborhood in the worst part of Gotham. Crown Point already has a dirty little secret, and it is this. People live here. These were supposed to be buildings owned by corrupt multi-billion-dollar companies for the personal investments of their CEOs, but no, some people wanted roofs over their head. This is a very tight-knit borough, one where a stranger will be all too obvious, so bats will need to become one of them. We go to the daytime when two women, Dipsy and Macy, discuss the news of Cassie's body found with her ex-boyfriend. I guess word hadn't gotten around that it was a dirt clone. A cop drives up, on a different case. Someone had cut up 3 women in the hill and may be hiding out in this area, so the ladies should give the police a holler if they hear anything. He leaves, and yeah, these women don't much care about some dead woman in another part of town. A mom forces her kid to go to school, and it's clear she's not exactly friends with these busybodies. Dipsy chases away a lumbering bum asking for change when they're met by 2 other neighbors. Mr. Sweet walking his adult daughter Anna, whom it's implied has Down syndrome, or a similar condition. A man named Artis runs past the 2 gossipers, but is pulled back from entering the apartment by a trio of guys that start wailing the snot out of him. An older guy inside the building witnesses this.
"Hey, Rafi, better come see this. There's a squirrel with a yogurt cup on its head. It's like he's wearing a tiny hat. It's frickin' adorable."
The rather large Rafi intervenes, easily fighting off the attackers he knows to be from Park Row, and tells them to leave and stay out, though the strangers do vow payback against Artis. Rafi can tell the young man did something to provoke this, bringing in outside trouble, but seems okay with not telling Artis's dad, in exchange for working it off.
"Today you shovel concrete till your bones crack. That's or an hour of working retail. Shoveling concrete, please."
This commotion has, of course, attracted an audience.
"What are you looking at? Don't you have jobs?"
"Yes, I'm an influencer. I recorded the fight, and I'm going to put it on Instagram with sound effects and cartoon animal filters." That bum from earlier asks the flannel bruiser for a quarter, and the man laughs as he pulls a 20 from a roll of bills and tells him to get a shower. It's mentioned Rafi works at the waterfront, foreman of the construction workers that, I guess, were part of the crowd that's since dispersed. One of them says that he's needed at the local tavern regarding the man the police are looking for. Rafi leaves as his men head to work, just as Dipsy and Macy are about to chat about what Rafi's wife has said. That'd make him seem like less of a good man than he appears. Then the women make themselves scarce when along comes Crazy Jeffrey. Once a lawyer making $250,000 a year, he up and vanished for 3 weeks, turned up in Crown Point, and has been getting crazier in the 2 years since. Everyone avoids him, even Rafi, and seem to all wish him dead, as he finishes his bottle and drops it on the ground. Given that winged logo, I'm going to say that brand is Batcardi. His only friend is a tree in the park. Those Keebler fellas give him a tray of assorted cookies every Friday. Good people, them elves. Raleigh Park is the jewel of the neighborhood. A crown jewel, you might say. a city block separating it from and off limits to Park Row. It's clean, has a basketball court, a like-new swing set that barely looks used, and is also apparently empty, like an action figure you don't want to take out of its packaging, to preserve the value. Turns out that kid earlier, ordered to go to school, Leo Merling, sells drugs for his mom, and is approached by an interested classmate. Leo demands money up front, like he's been told, but is convinced by the buyer he'll get cash from his brother, only if he sees the stuff first. The kid isn't good at this and is so scared of going back home short, he agrees. Mr. Sweet, who apparently lost his job after getting caught peeping, is worried about money, and his landlord sending big men after him looking for rent. A Mr. Landings approaches him offering him money, while eyeing his daughter. A drug addict desperately tries to find her dealer, and while narration mentions she still has her looks, it doesn't look like it in this panel. On the next page, she looks completely different, so I guess she found them again. Unbeknownst to her, she's pursued by a guy named Tony that's been wanting her services, but doesn't have the money for it, so figures he'll threaten her with his knife. Behind Tony is a guy named Ralph that thinks Tony's been fooling around with his wife, but Ralph isn't married. He's got a pistol, though. A really high-maintenance pistol that always threatens to go to her mother's during every argument, but she never goes. We return to Rafi Muskahanian, who sometimes feels like just cutting loose and destroying one of the town's filthy beggars with his bare hands. Between his job, the cops, everything, he needs to be in control always. This man on the run could easily be controlled, and Rafi could always use another pair of hands to work for him, but he's not overly fond of strangers. He enters the local bar, the Guillotine, and wants to meet this killer. No name given, the only identifier being a scar over his right eye. He's convinced the police don't want to be here any more than anyone else, and will leave out of boredom soon enough, willing to work for Rafi in the meantime. The big guy would prefer he'd be good with a jackhammer than a knife, but agrees to have his cronies move the guy after dark and meet him in a few days. He tells the bartender to give him whatever food he wants, and when asked if they should talk to the friendly man, Rafi says no. In fact, this stranger could be the solution to at least one of their problems.
We're one performer short of our all-male production of Little Women, and I think he'd make a good Meg March.
That night, while the man is moved, Leo not only never got the money, but gets tormented by his mom. Artis and a friend of his plan on getting revenge on the Park Row guys who knocked him around, and Mr. Sweet is trying to coax his daughter into nice Mr. Landing's car, though she clearly doesn't want to. Good instincts, Anna. That bum we've seen, who's been asking passers-by for a quarter, approaches Landing, grimaces as he asks for 50 cents, and the creepy Four Eyes that was going to force himself on a non-consenting woman looks awfully scared, almost like he knows. He ends up in traction, 92% of his body in a cast. Mr. Sweet, who's previously left Anna in the center for a time every day, I'm assuming some kind of adult daycare facility, has left her there indefinitely in the care of nuns. She'll cry for a while, but won't have to fight off people like Landings. Leo's mom didn't beat him because someone from the dark gave her a shiner, and Artis and his buddy are in a dumpster after something fell on them, so they didn't end up getting killed in Crime Alley. That's our Batman! As for the man that cut up those women in the hill, police finally got him. Well, his body, after he'd been beaten to death by a certain someone with large hands. So law enforcement needn't stay around any longer. It's clear that Rafi is in charge, and likely has the answers Batman is looking for. So he returns to the cave, discarding his bum disguise. Tim is livid that his boss ghosted for a week while Gotham crumbled, and no sooner is he back, is he heading out again. Bruce tells him to simply hold down the fort, and sometime later, we're at the waterfront reclamation site, where narration implies Bats shoved its crane operator down the stairs to break his arm and give him a concussion so that he could replace him and meet Rafi under the alias Donnie Malloy. Whatever you think about this arc so far, this issue does something I have literally not seen done in ages. It mentions Crime Alley without referencing the murder of Bruce's parents. We did it, people! Back in 2005, but we did it! Woo! 808's cover shows the Scarface puppet, apparently in mid-air with his Tommy gun, as fire seems to rage and a badge, a six-shooter, and IV fly. All this and a big ol' smile, too.
And just look how happy he is.
The same wooden mug is on the first page, narration calling it the old face of Gotham, which knows all about the new, friendly, smiling face of the body, where they are, their leader, and this knowledge puts the puppet's life in danger. Or rather, Arnold Wesker, the ventriloquist, who's in a hospital on life support and guarded by Robin, as well as a couple cops he knows are good ones. But with duplicates running around, one never knows. And it doesn't help how creepy that doll looks to the boy wonder. Now he regrets having marathoned the entire Chucky movie collection last week. 3 floors below is Frank Ivers, recovering from his gunshot wound. Up to now, he's never been scared or cowardly in his 22 years on the force. Not even in the first 5, when he was actually honest. It doesn't seem to matter now, his partner murdered with his family, and Frank panics that he may be the last human on a planet overtaken by shape-changers. This paranoia has him surprise a nurse, pricking her finger to draw blood and prove she's human. But between his recent trials and a bad reaction to Demerol, he fears it's a trick and the monsters he's been working with are going to eat his brain. Why? Afraid they're hankering for a light snack? Bruce is at the construction site, with Rafi's crew very slow to even acknowledge him, let alone trust him. But it's the foreman himself he needs to know better. Taking a different approach than we're used to seeing, Wayne has crashed on the couch in Rafi's office every night, not even bothering to look through any files, but he did take someone's tuna sandwich out of the fridge. That gets him chained up and questioned, and perhaps it's his snarky reply that gets him left there until morning. Perhaps Rafi's being ironic when they say they'll talk then, since the blood rushing to his head would probably kill him in a couple hours if I'm not mistaken. But to the ironworker's amazement, the next morning, he got himself down, and wisecracked some more, leading to a fistfight with the boss. It takes all Bats' skill to avoid permanent injury while taking hits from a guy whose nickname is Moose, and it's not just a play on his last name. This managed to work, getting them all to trust Donnie, and even earn him the nickname Houdini. Either that or he misheard a conversation 2 guys were having about Paul Dini. An inebriated Rafi likes Donnie enough to let him stay at his place for a while, try his wife's cooking, especially her lamb stew. At the hospital, Ivers has gotten loose, tested a cop, and is now hiding in a closet, his psychosis worsening when he's found by another nurse. When he tries to see if she bleeds with the stab of a syringe, Robin intervenes, having heard about the AWOL sergeant, and taking the opportunity to break away from guard duty for a spell. It's not a long fight before Frank is restrained and rants that the dirt man will never take his soul. "Relax, buddy. I'm human just like you." Unfortunately. Some days, Tim Drake wishes he'd been born a chinchilla. He says the cops will take him away soon enough, but Ivers laughs. There are no cops, or nurses, or doctors, and Robin sees how strangely empty this floor of the hospital really is.
Well, I'm off to Pilates.
Back in Crown Point, Rafi leads Bruce up the stairs of his building, where they pass Miss Dipsy. "Who's your friend? Any chance he's into 70-year-old chain-smoking gossipers with a bad hip and stacks of old magazines I refuse to throw out for some reason?" Stepping over a guy just sleeping on the steps, he tells Donnie to ignore the old woman, and everyone else, as they're no better than animals. Despite that, Rafi has no interest in moving, since this is his home. After passing one apartment that apparently has no door, but several malnourished kids sharing one bed, they arrive at Rafi's place and have dinner, where he talks at length about the food, Bruce waiting for the conversation to hopefully reveal further secrets. When his wife, Siran, doesn't bring kashlama, the lamb stew Rafi promised his new friend, the bruiser angrily grabs her. Wayne plays it cool, saying it's fine as long as he's full, and things are quiet until there's a knock at the door. Ironically, it's a door-to-door kashlama saleswoman. Actually, it's George, Rafi's right-hand man, and after a quiet chat in the hallway and some excuses, they're off. Bruce knows he wouldn't be invited, but can tell Rafi doesn't know the secrets his wife keeps, or he wouldn't leave her alone with their guest. As our hero feigns hitting the hay, 3 empty-eyed officers pull the covers on a ventriloquist's hospital bed and find Scarface. He was prescribed a $20 tin of Thompson's water seal, which will cost him $1,000. With insurance. Robin hits them with a concussion charge that'd knock out a 200-pound man, then takes the puppet back to another room where he's moved Wesker and Sergeant Ivers, who's still bonkers as he offers to be lookout. Not dumb enough to agree to that, Rob instead calls someone else for help. Hey, Superman. Yeah, Gotham's gone nuts again, and I really don't care about Batman's whole My City routine. I've got finals this week, so if you and the League could come over and solve this problem in the next 10 minutes, I'd be totally cool with that. Bruce tailed the ironworkers to a local bar, where they meet a man matching Penguin's description. Someone who smiles more than people should, who seems to be the one they answer to, and when they part ways, the undercover Bat follows the smiling man as he heads into the park. But the closer he gets, the further away it seems. Wayne tries to force himself across the street, but begins wondering if other Gothamites would even care, if it'll affect the suffering in Crown Point, as we flash back to those 6 kids sharing one mattress. In the end, he turns back, never making it across. Tonight the park will fill his sleep with nightmares. Tomorrow it will be forgotten. Nightmares so horrific, they're easily forgettable. Bruce made it back without his hosts, realizing he'd gone, but Saran wasn't so lucky. It's a little difficult to tell, but she has a black eye as she serves the much-lauded kashlama, with her abuser laughing and complimenting her cooking skills. It's clear Bruce wouldn't mind repaying Rafi for his actions, but for now he needs to keep the act going to learn more about the smiling man. Back in the hospital, Robin is getting more irate, having to put up with Iris's rambling about how they don't have a chance, and they have to check that people bleed red to be sure. Put me on pricking duty.
Phrasing.
I like to prick things.
Hey, phrasing!
Just as the young vigilante is losing his cool, the help he called for arrives. Jim Gordon, during one of a few times he was no longer police commissioner, which I think has happened about as often as Alfred up and quitting his job at Wayne Manor. Skipping issues 809 and 810, since they, and 2 issues of Batman, comprise the 4-issue arc War Crimes, a follow-up to the War Games story I mentioned at the beginning of the review. So this story, taking place before another story, pauses so we get a follow-up to that one story, and...
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
Back to City of Crime with 811, with a cover where Bats looks like he has pointy teeth and a forked green prehensile tongue. Either he got into some mutagen or that's Toad from the Brotherhood of Mutants trying out a new Halloween costume. Narration tells us that when Raleigh Park was completed, city planners expected it to lead to Crown Point becoming gentrified, though the locals were skeptical. While Crown Point is still one of Gotham's most dangerous neighborhoods 12 years later, the park remains as picturesque as when it first opened, despite citizens figuring it'd be a new hangout for drug dealers, prostitutes, and homeless folk. They failed to properly synergize their differing business models. All those team-building conferences in Akron? Wasted. The only person around is Crazy Jeffrey, who spots a hunk of cheese in an otherwise empty wastebasket, giving it a sniff, but otherwise not questioning where it came from. Little does he realize he just screwed up Tom's latest trap to catch Jerry. Seriously, that does look like something straight out of a cartoon. Which, kind of makes sense, because comics. Anyway, the smiling man is there, saying he can eat it and it won't hurt much, and they both start laughing, though Jeff's laughter devolves into an agonizing wail.
This isn't Swiss. This is white cheddar with scoops taken out of it with a melon baller. You inhuman monster!
Sometime later in Crown Point, children are laughing and cheering. The world has not ended. A pig has not flown. Monkeys have not... You get the point. It's just baseball.
Hey, little anal-dwelling butt monkey. Time for you to go home, little buddy.
Bruce is referee for the game, helping the kids forget their problems for a bit, and admittedly enjoys seeing them happy. He returns to the apartment, where Saran is forgetting her troubles for a bit, too, by way of alcohol, disregarding what her husband might do, because Donnie will save her. Bruce asks about a man Rafi introduced him to, someone who smiles a lot. This wasn't shown in the comics, so either it happened in between issues, and this is a really clumsy way to tell us, or the detective is technically lying to get answers. Saran knows who he's talking about, finding his constant grinning rather uncomfortable, and warns her guest not to let the man take him into the park. Others who have been taken there return changed. Wayne just wants to know who he's getting involved with, but she says he probably already does. He wants to help, even suggesting she go to a shelter, which gets him to recall the fire that led him to this investigation. But Saran laughs it off, asking her guest to join her for a drink. That's when Rafi returns home, wanting to show something to his new friend.
If it's your vintage Pog collection, you already showed it to me twice, and I already said it was cool. You don't need to keep trying to impress me.
Back at the hospital, Robin has explained to Gordon that Bats has disappeared and will be in touch, while the body has everyone pants-darkeningly terrified.
Everybody and their dogs are scared to death.
That's because part of the body's plan is to randomly set off fireworks at night. Jerks. The only ones not scared are those who know anything about them, because they're already dead. I kind of identify with Jimbo here, asking what everybody he's talking about, since I don't think we've seen a lot of people unconnected to the body as being especially scared. I think it takes away a bit of the impact of Tim's body language here. I say a bit because we did see Boss Bat be rather flippant about his absence and leaving so much to his sidekick. One of two associates Gordon brought along with him, Tiny, says the coast is clear, that the fakes have left.
It's getting easier to spot 'em. Something in the walk. It's a weird combination of Walk Like an Egyptian and the Ministry of Silly Walks.
Ivers, claiming to be thinking more clearly, votes to leave Ventriloquist behind since their enemy wouldn't be above blowing up the hospital. Well, wouldn't be the first time someone tried to copy the Joker from The Dark Knight. Gordon suggests that even if that's true, they haven't, because they're waiting for Batman. And now they're copying Warner Brothers' marketing strategy. We return to Crown Point, where Rafi mentions Donnie becoming a kind of hero to the local kids.
I used to play a little ball in Center City. We'd get tourists that'd confuse us for Central City and always complain when they couldn't find the Flash Museum.
Rafi doesn't think he should bother, because, in case you forgot, he considers everyone around to be filth, undeserving of such niceties, from those kids to an off-panel couple in a doorway doing something out in the open that's allegedly revolting. I'm guessing creating casino? Bruce thinks he's being too harsh, that a little fun could help prevent kids from turning out so poorly. But the foreman says they're just a part of life's experiments, no more sympathetic than lab rats.
You are a fistful of stupidity.
Okay, they're lab mice, but you get the idea. Some of the aforementioned kids are still hanging out after their ball game, with one, Eddie, hitting an imaginary ball into an imaginary parking lot, and another hints that you-know-who, likely Batman, couldn't do better.
Yeah, like he'd even play.
I tried a few times, but I kept getting kicked out. Why would they call it stealing bases if they don't expect players to be beaten up and tied upside down under a street lamp?
That's when the game they aren't playing is called an account of Crazy Jeffrey, frantically running up as the kids scatter. Except Eddie, who seems frozen in fear. The man is foaming at the mouth, vomiting, and grabs the kid while he begs for help. Then Eddie begins foaming too. Never before has the ad slogan, "Behold the power of cheese," been this unsettling. Ravi has taken Bruce to the waterfront construction site, wanting him to see the bigger picture, rather than how small-minded people are getting rich.
Their money fuels the building.
They're going to find out real quick that a furnace that literally burns cash is both ludicrously expensive and an ineffective heating system. Place your bets on which one they figure out first. From there, atop one of the unfinished towers, Rafi goes on for an hour or so about how theirs may be a small part, but it's an important one, which will mold greatness and transform the whole city. Narration, either giving us insight on Bruce's thoughts or just saying it outright, suggests Rafi is partially right. He is a small but important part, and the words he speaks do make him happy, but they aren't his words, and he may only truly understand every third one. We the do now part a yes we from a molded. Sheesh, the narrator better hope Rafi doesn't find out how badly he was just insulted. Especially as it goes on to say he's a zealot, a mere proxy for the body, which is how they've remained unknown for so long, amounting to little more than a janitor in the Crown Point Petri dish.
Jan Itor. Dr. Jan Itor.
When the two return from the site, they find Artis dead in the street, having fallen from one of the buildings, from which a scream is heard. Something is wrong because Rafi is scared, and he is scared of nothing. The two enter the complex, both feeling a twist in their stomachs, making them want to run off screaming. That's what happens when you eat warm gas station shrimp scampi for lunch. As an old man wields a knife, I guess wanting the reader to be very, very quiet, they ascend the stairs instinctively, thoughts clouded by doubt as they narrowly avoid a woman's gunshot blast. Rafi runs up in a rage, and Bruce starts looking around, the fear making one want to escape and protect oneself. Enough to kill. He enters one apartment to find 5 dead, the mother apparently stabbing the youngest, and we see a high chair and a baby bottle, so back to the usual cheeriness.
I think I'm going to go outside now and wrench.
However, she and the others were bludgeoned by another, whom Bruce finds in a bedroom, hitting a blood-stained baseball bat against the floor and apologizing for what he did. Eddie. Bruce cautiously approaches, but the lad sees him as someone else, someone he knew would come. Batman, but a more menacing vision, with red eyes, an evil scowl, and a tongue much like on the cover. Eddie jumps out the window, but Bruce is too far away to stop him. He considers following suit, and that he even deserves it. Not his real feelings, but the uselessness and guilt mount in him all the same. Made to feel that way by the people of Crown Point. People who won't be helped, and he should just let them die. Misplaced anger and irrational compulsion to let struggling people suffer to death. This story just made Bruce Wayne a lot like some real-life billionaires. As he begins to identify with Rafi's mindset that these people are all vermin, he notices the citizens outside behaving as they normally do, even if they are pushers and perverts. He realizes the problem is still in the building, so in spite of his fears telling him he'll fail, he climbs up the side of the building up to Rafi's apartment, where he's yelling at his frightened wife while aggressively wielding a roasted chicken.
You know what? You gotta relax your chicken.
Relax the chicken.
As she defends herself with a knife, he accuses her of conspiring with his enemies and poisoning his food.
Make love, then stab me in my sleep.
Hey, you agreed we needed to spice up things in the bedroom. Don't blame me because you forgot the safe word.
Wayne goes in for a tackle, but the brute gets him against the wall, squeezing his head like a vice as he foams at the mouth. Rage and fear seem to permeate the very air, as narration suggests our hero is giving into it, that he's stronger, and if there's killing to do, he'll do it. But when Saran runs for the window, about to make herself another fatality to avoid further abuse, Bruce frees himself in time to pull her away. The 2 men regain control of themselves through sheer force of will, and Rafi is clear-headed enough to apologize. To Donnie, not his wife. But the possibility of another fight, one to the death, still hangs in the air. Jeffrey just so happens to walk by, with Rafi instantly accusing him of being the cause of all this insanity, tackling him over the handrail and sending the 2 to the ground floor, with the vagabond taking the brunt of the impact. Yet he's still alive enough to choke as Rafi begins throttling him. And remember, Rafi's apartment is several stories up, so while potentially dubious that he's not limping or injured, he's pretty strong and running on adrenaline and anger, it's amazing that Jeff can still breathe enough to gasp for air at all. I guess what I'm saying is,
take that, physics.
By the time Bruce gets down there, a crowd has gathered, praising Rafi for saving them, as Jeff is dead, and the strange fear seems to lift away. The so-called crazy man would be one of 14 people to die in the 3 hours the nightmare endured, 4 by their own hands. Bruce had felt this gut-wrenching fear before, but so much worse that he'd forgotten until now. Raleigh Park. The police would arrive, no one would be charged. They were under a mysterious influence, except Rafi, who was rather lucid when he strangled Jeffrey. But justice in Gotham has a strange sense of humor. Justice insists that one of these days they're going to seriously take a shot at stand-up comedy. An ambulance retrieved the outcast man and miraculously got his heart beating again. He was taken to Gotham Mercy Hospital, the same facility where Robin and Gordon sit on the 4th floor, and the death toll in Crown Point of now 13 will become mere footnotes to the impending horror. Not sure I'm thrilled about things getting worse than we've already seen. Dead dogs in the streets, exploited pregnant girls, murderous psychopathy, dehumanization. It almost makes Dawn of Justice seem optimistic. Tune in next week when we wrap up this story and how it's fared overall since it was originally published. I'm the Angry Spork, and man, have I got issues.